Good morning, everybody. Happy Monday. I'm starting a little bit later than I usually do because my internet went out. It's been raining here in Southern California. If you live in Southern California, you may have noticed there was a hurricane off the coast of Mexico. Baja Mexico came up, and it's been weird weather here because, of course, there's no such thing as global warming, as everyone keeps saying, but I have to disagree with that because I think we can just really see it for what it is right here in the Coachella Valley, where you're seeing plants just going all floppy and everything else. So anyway, I'm sorry I'm late. You can blame Spectrum for that. And so please send your complaints to Spectrum and not to the Rabbinic Cynic, which reminds me, if you like this podcast, please hit like and subscribe. You can find me on the Rabbinic Cynic on YouTube. That's where the like and subscribe happens. On Facebook, you can share it. Go to the YouTube channel. If you got any questions for me, that's one of the things we do is ask the rabbi. You can go to rabbibentley@gmail.com. What I wanted to talk about today was a couple of things. The first thing is this idea of what does it mean to be created in the image of God? What is the biblical account of creation has often been used in politics, especially in politics, but not just politics, but throughout history as a way of justifying human supremacy over the planet. But when you actually go through the texts, and I've discussed this a couple of times, but when you go through the texts, you find that it's not as clear cut as you actually think. The biblical narrative goes through this kind of process where it mentions a number of times how God created humanity. We often think of this, well, God created men and women, and women were created out of Adam's rib. This is not actually the case. If you see me looking down because my internet went down, I'm pulling up some text here that I believe is critical in the understanding of this of this narrative. So if you look at Genesis itself, it says a number of things. And I'm saying in Hebrew because just I want to show off how I can read Hebrew. Well, I don't have to show that off. Vayomer Elohim naseh adam b'tzalmenu, and God said, let us make humankind, right? So the word Adam, which we think just means man, but it doesn't, it means humankind, in our image, right? B'tzalmenu ki mutenu, right? So it uses two different words. One is a word, tselem, right? Matslema is the modern Hebrew for a photograph, right? So it's a physical image. Dimnutenu is another word for dumut, which means likeness. So one is a physical, what something looks like, and the other is likeness, meaning what is the philosophical, what are we about? What is the meaning? Who are we, right? And then it goes, and then it uses this word v'yildu bidgat hayam uv b'shamayim, right? And they shall v'yildu, right? So that can mean rule, but it can also mean responsibility for the fish of the sea and for the birds that fly in b'shamayim, right? The Hebrew word for heaven can also just mean sky, right? Doesn't mean heaven literally. And all the creepy crawlers on the earth. And then it goes again, so there's an intent. The intent is to say this is how human beings should be made, right? This is what we are all about, right? We are all about acting as examples of a creator, or of what that which brought together creation, the intelligence behind creation, right? If you believe in intelligent design, if you don't believe in intelligent design, we could just talk about the rules of science. So human beings, as they're trying to understand it, are saying, well, it's our job to master science. And I think that's a big part of what that means. And we master science. What do we do? How do we do that? By understanding the animal world, by understanding nature, by understanding creation, the way science, the way the universe was put together, right? The swirly, the idea of gravity and everything moving together, right? Everything's swirly. If you look at galaxies, they're all swirly, right? I saw an interesting article where if you look at gestations of embryos inside, animal wombs, human wombs, wherever it might be, it has that similar kind of swirly pattern, which makes you wonder, right? So there's that kind of order to the universe of how evolution created the system that works. But then there's something that says the system that works and allows creation to exist. And so the Bible itself is just trying to understand that using very, very old terminology. This is ancient Hebrew. But the thing that I thought was very interesting was then right after that comes another verse. Vayivra Elohim et ha'adam b'tzalmo b'tzelem Elohim bara oto zachar u'nekeva bara otam. And God created humankind again. I like that translation for, right? Humankind in the divine image, creating it in the image of God, creating them, male and female, right? So the whole argument, everyone says, well, there was just Adam and Eve, right? And so it was all, I've heard some really nasty references using the Adam and Eve concept. I don't even want to go there, but we've all heard it. But it says them, right? Implying that there is multiple. This is the creation of humanity, not necessarily that there were two people, male and female, and then they had babies, and then there was all that incest that was going on. And that brings me to Game of Thrones, the House of the Dragon, right? I want to draw that little line there just to kind of keep you holding out for that. But what it really means is that humanity was created for a higher purpose. That humanity, as the only sentient beings on Earth, right? So you can either believe that God created humans, and or that what we understand as God could be the rules of science, or a being, a supreme being that created us. But the ultimate idea is that the purpose behind creation, the creation of humans, was as an act of responsibility. So we see the divine image, right? The image of that which is beyond, that is eternity. We think about the universe. The universe represents this idea of eternity, a frame of time, right? We all know it's expanding, but it's a frame of time that we have no concept. We cannot grasp the length of the universe. So by saying that a human being is created b'tzalmenu b'dmutenu, right, in a physical image and in a metaphorical or philosophical likeness, the implication there is that even though we may have short lifespans, we are still created in the image of the universe, so to speak, in the intellectual, the sentient aspect of the universe. And we can talk about sentience isn't just human beings necessarily. I think that there's sentience in animals, there's sentience in planets, there's sentience in the earth, there's sentience in nature, the way trees react to the fungi. But as with human beings, we're just expressing that in our own terms. So when we look at other human beings, and that's why the Torah itself began with this. It didn't begin with a system of laws, but rather it began with a definition of what humanity is. That humanity is above just raw animal form, right? And that's not to say that animals don't also have feelings and spirits and souls and a life force, a life energy that has a purpose, right? I'm not saying we're above or below, but we do have a responsibility as the apex predator, as we're the top of the food chain, so we do have that responsibility. and that responsibility doesn't applies towards the earth itself, right? In terms of climate justice, but also implies to social justice. It also implies to how we are supposed to act on this earth, how we're supposed to see our fellow human beings, right? We're supposed to see our fellow human beings equal to us, right? So if we want to say, if you're a person of faith and you want to say human beings are created in divine image, how can you justify denigrating other religions, other races, right? I mean, there's so many people that have been killed in the name of religion, yet the very source of the Bible that they use as a justification for those actions basically says every human being is created equal, is equal to God. So if you're killing them because they don't necessarily believe what you believe, then you're killing God in a sense. And I think that's a very important point to understand. There needs to be, that's the idea. We talk about climate justice. It's not just about the planet. It's also about human beings. It's about justice for the poor. We talk about food insecurity. That's, again, every human being is created in divine image. Every human being has a basic, unalienable right to be able to provide food for their families, to getting health care. Whatever that looks, no one should ever be denied life-saving medications because of money. That's a human right. And so if you want to say you're a religious person, right, and this might go back to the arguments people make about Roe versus Wade, right? So it's one thing to say, whatever your opinion on that is. But if you're going to put the life of the mother and say, that doesn't necessarily matter, or the consequences of creating these laws because of my one narrow particular understanding of the Bible or understanding of religion, then we're talking about, that's a contradiction to the Bible itself. They're contradicting the Bible in the way they think that everyone should just be in it for themselves. And that's just not the way society should be run, right? We have a responsibility towards each other. And so I think it's a very powerful idea, this idea, what it means to be created in the divine image. If you have opinion of what the divine image is, I always like to use the idea of divine image as kind of a springboard for discussion. But from just that particular level, I want to debunk that idea that men were the primary reason for creation. Right? It wasn't. The Bible doesn't say that. The Bible says humankind. And there's two different levels of creation. There's there's a physical form that we were created in. And then there's it's sentient form, the consciousness that we have, the consciousness that leads us to strive in areas of science and arts and literature and engineering and whatever else, the other advances, technology, right? We are becoming like God in a sense. We are developing the ability to change DNA, whether intentionally or unintentionally, right? That's the trappings of this modern society that we live in. This society that is evolving technologically speaking for such a rapid pace, right? We are getting godlike powers faster and faster. Then what happens when we invent a supercomputer? Terminator, right? Is that going to happen? I don't know. I don't really care. I do care, but I think we have bigger things to worry about today than Terminator tomorrow. Than the world going crazy and all these computers taking us over. I know that I had an argument with my robot that was cleaning my house the other day. But is that created in the divine image because we created that? That's an interesting question. So that aside, so I mentioned this idea of I don't believe Adam and Eve were and there there was just originally two people. It wasn't. We're talking about the beginning of civilization. And talking about the beginning of civilizations, there are two great TV shows that we're watching right now. I think they're great. The first was anyone catch the Game of Thrones, the House of the Dragon yesterday? Right? Everybody is talking about it. I personally thought that the sexual, this is a spoiler alert. So if you haven't seen it yet, go blah 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 blah. I don't want to hear this anymore. But Rhaenyra was she's the heir, and her uncle came in, Matt Smith, doctor, and they went out on the town, and it got really creepy and really uncomfortable, at least for me, because you saw her put in a very difficult situation sexually, right? She's a young woman looking up to her uncle, and even though it looked on the surface that maybe she, I think that she was led, that she didn't have a choice in the matter necessarily, even though it looked like she was okay with it. I don't think she was okay with it. She came back angry. I thought the sex was a little much, and I don't mind watching sex. I'm not prude or anything else, but it was just like, come on, how long can you slap this out for? It was just a little much. But I think it brought up some really powerful arguments about what the definition of whether a woman has a choice here, and whether it wasn't her fault. It was she was being kind of led by someone that she saw as someone that she looked up to, and he took advantage of that, I believe. That's my opinion. I think he took advantage of that. And in this #MeToo world, I don't think that should be taken lightly. And people may have different opinions about what that means. But I personally believe that it was, I think that he was essentially raping her and just kind of left her. I think it was horrible. And then she tried to get control back when she went to her bodyguard, and kind of, then they had that really long, which I thought was the gratuitous sex scene. And but the more important issue that the show really brought out was if she was a man, they would have thought twice. Because she was a woman, it caused all of this drama that forced her into a difficult political situation. If she was a man, it would just be like, And then the king looked at her and said, but you were born a woman. And that is a perfect example of this patriarchal society. And the show's obviously making a comment on that. But anyway, if you have an opinion on what you thought of that episode, feel free to share. I personally think it was showing the power of the different forms that rape can take. And she was raped by her uncle, in my opinion. Now I'm going to move to a different show. It's kind of like there are all these shows that are history shows of shows that we love, right? The Lord of the Rings, the Rings of Power, which has been maligned by a lot of fans. They're all kind of going along and just saying, I wish everyone would just stop hating on it. Read the book again. Because if you see the book, there's a lot of it. I think it really makes sense. I think that the show itself is really. I don't want to give too much away on this one. The show is really, in itself, is really kind of. It's coming into its own. It did start off slowly, but then remember there's going to be 50 episodes, and they go, and it's if you read the books, it takes a hard time. It's a hard time to get. It's difficult to get into it. But I thought one of for me, one very interesting aspect, and that's what the social media is going to go buzz with, is who is that strange man that fell from the stars? The man that fell from the stars, right? And are hanging out with the Brandy, the Hobbit families, who I keep forgetting. Harpies, what are they? Hopgoods. I keep forgetting the name. I hear it every time. I'm just going to call them the Hobbits. Is he Gandalf? Right? Could he be Gandalf? Is Gandalf in the Rings of Power? Right, so I really think it's Gandalf. I'm hoping it's Gandalf, because if it is Gandalf, it really makes sense, his whole obsession with hobbits. Do you think it's Gandalf? Again, write a little note in the comments, either on YouTube or on Facebook, if you think it's Gandalf. And at the same time, you can weigh in on the Game of Thrones episode if you did. And at the same time, I also want to hear what you think about what the divine image means, what it means to be created in divine image, and what we can learn from that. This is the high holidays, right? Talk about the creation. It's talking about the creation of humanity, of a civilization. This is a representation of that, right? The six millennia of the Jewish calendar is counted in. I don't believe is from the creation of the earth. Of course not. We know that the earth is billions of years old. The universe is billions and billions and billions of years old. But just to say that it's 6,000 is ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. We already got proof that it's not 6,000 years. But it does represent an idea of like maybe this is the beginning of a type of civilization. We know there were human civilizations going back at least 10,000 years, if not more. But the 6,000 years marks the beginning of the modern civilization, so to speak. Because when you look at time and the way in the length of the universe has been around, it's just a light switch going on and off very fast in terms of that time. So with that, I will be back tomorrow, and I hope I gave you some things to think about. I'm going to end with the sounding of the ram's horn, of the shofar, as it was a full moon, and we're coming up halfway, 2 more weeks to the Jewish high holidays, to the Jewish New Year. So we're going to wake up from your slumber. To the call, and listen to the sound, still silent voice, called the mama daka. Everybody live long and prosper. Have a beautiful week. Peace out. I'll see you tomorrow.